Welcome to the Last Christian Radio Show with your hosts, Brother J.D. Williams and Brother TL Farley. It's now time to grab your Bible as prophecy brings into focus the events playing out on the world stage at incredible speed, right before our very eyes, and exactly as was foretold.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Last Christian Radio Show. We really do appreciate you joining us tonight. My name is J.D. Williams, and as always, I'm joined there from the Dallas and Fort Worth area by my good friend and co-host, Mr. TL Terry Farley. How you doing tonight, Terry?
Howdy, folks, and hey, Joel, how you doing? It's kind of icy over here in Dallas. I don't know about where you're at.
Well, you know, you got cars going up and down the street all the time. We don't. So you can imagine, it is. They canceled school last night in advance of this.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, we're froze under, which, for a lot of people in the country, they laugh at us. But here in Texas, when it gets cold, everybody hibernates. That's just the way it is. You know, the good thing about that is by next Monday, we'll be under 80 degrees, if not higher. That's just how Texas is. Now, first of all, I have got to start the show tonight by, first of all, saying, we ran into major technical problems on Saturday. I apologize for that. We did not have our normal weekly wrap. We have corrected that issue. We're now up and running, and we appreciate all our affiliates out there who hung in there with us. And I don't believe we'll have that problem arise again. We certainly hope not. But the one thing that I was told years ago, Terry, and it has always been true, and that's it. Every time we've got a great message that something that God really wants everybody to hear, Satan does everything he can to shut you down. And he shut us down Saturday. The good thing about this is that it didn't really change it. I've still got the same show I had for Saturday lined up, and everything falls into place. It just highlights it even more. So, sorry, Satan, God wins again, as he always does, 100% of the time. Okay.
Amen.
Now, I do want to start this out tonight by getting into what really... Well, I'm just going to play this. Again, as a member of the U.S. Press Association, I'm able to play this. This is from the Watchman Newscast, Mr. Eric Steckelbeck, and I want you to listen to this report carefully. It is very illuminating.
Got breaking news for you today. Friday, January 27th, a horrific terror attack in Jerusalem during Shabbat, no less. A Palestinian terrorist opened fire on worshipers leaving a synagogue in the Neve Yaakov neighborhood of Jerusalem today around 8:15 p.m. Israel time. Again, during Shabbat, worshipers were leaving this synagogue when this terrorist opened fire. As I come to you around 3 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, January 27th, at least 7 people are dead as a result of this terror attack, and at least 10 more are wounded. Now, our prayer is that those numbers do not increase, but that's what we have for you so far, folks. Around 3 p.m. Eastern time, you may be watching this later. Maybe the numbers will increase. We pray not. Again, 7 dead and 10 wounded at a synagogue in God's one and only holy city. That's right. Today, January 27th, is the day where Israelis and Jews around the world are commemorating the horrors of the Holocaust and vowing once again that it will never happen again, what was perpetrated by the Nazis and that demonic regime. And yet, we have the likes of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and their masters, the Iranian regime, trying or pushing to carry out another Holocaust. Folks, they don't hesitate in sharing with you their goals. They want to wipe the state of Israel off the map, and they want to eliminate the Jewish people. It's real simple. This is their ideology. This is their end game, and we see it again today with this horrific synagogue massacre. That's the word to use to describe it. Now, again, the gunman was killed. Palestinians right now, we have footage on Twitter and elsewhere of Palestinians in Jerusalem, in Arab neighborhoods there, and in other places like Jenin, celebrating, setting off fireworks and handing out candy, celebrating this carnage that went down in Jerusalem today. That's the state of play, folks. That's what we are looking at right now. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the two main Palestinian terror factions, I mentioned them a minute ago. They are both, not surprisingly, praising this operation. Again, as I come to you, neither one explicitly claimed it and said, yes, this was us. But what has gone down in the past 24 hours or so, and I think this Jerusalem horrific terror event, evil event carried out by a demonic individual, it comes on the heels of an Israeli counter-terror raid in Jenin. Now, Jenin has become really a terror hotbed, especially in the past few months. More and more clashes between terrorists in Jenin and Israeli security forces and the Israel Defense Forces. Remember, Jenin is a stronghold of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Now, the main base for Islamic and Jihad and Hamas, two Iranian proxies, is Gaza. But Jenin in the West Bank, which we call here on the newscast Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, because the Bible calls it Judea and Samaria. Nonetheless, the world mostly calls it the West Bank. And Jenin is a city there where Islamic Jihad has a very strong hold. And yesterday, Thursday, the 26th, Israel carried out a major counter-terror operation there, killing several Islamic Jihad terrorists. The Israel Defense Forces said they thwarted an imminent terror plot being hatched in Jenin. Again, it was imminent. They said, look, weapons, bombs were primed for use by these terrorists. Thankfully, Israel was able to stop that terror operation. But in response, and no surprise, we've seen this script before, rockets were fired last night out of Gaza. A volley of at least 7 rockets. 2 were fired at first, both intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. Those rockets were targeting, in particular, Ashkelon in southern Israel and the surrounding communities. Then there was another volley of 5 rockets, and at least 2 of those were intercepted by Iron Dome as well. The other 3, thankfully, fell in an empty field. But Israel, the Israeli Air Force, did respond, folks, right away with some pretty serious strikes in Gaza against terror positions there, in particular, an underground rocket building factory. There was a bit of calm after what happened in Gaza and southern Israel last night. During the day, pretty calm, even in Jerusalem, atop the Temple Mount where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is located. A lot of times that flares up during Friday prayers. Worshipers come out of the mosque and things get nasty. Even that was more subdued today, but folks, that was the calm before a very wicked and evil storm. It brings us to now and the aftermath of this deadly terror attack in Jerusalem, again, on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, again, during Shabbat. This is where we are at, and we have a new Israeli government, of course, led by Benjamin Netanyahu. And we've seen a lot of unrest in Jerusalem in recent weeks, accusations that this new Israeli government wants to change the status quo atop the Temple Mount. We've been telling you here in the newscast that Jerusalem will be the center more and more of the world's attention in the days, weeks, and months to come. Not only is it the geographic center of the world, quite literally, it is at the center of God's prophetic plan.
Okay, now, Terry, one thing here, people will probably say, well, why would you say that this is breaking news when that's reported on Friday of last week? Now, if you remember, I told you every time we do one of these shows, I try to prepare it, but things happen so quickly that, we've got to move on. Well, in this particular case, again, I want to emphasize the fact that all this plays into what we're going to be talking about today, which is, of course, the growing coalition of Russia in preparation for the Gog and Magog war. And this all really centers on Turkey, which we're going to get into later. And this keeps evolving. This situation keeps evolving. So keep in mind that report, that initial report, was from Friday, just Friday now. This is Tuesday, of course, but just on Friday that happened, okay? Keep that in mind as we roll on here. I'm going to now play a very quick news clip, and I want you guys to pay attention to this as well. Again, keep in mind what we just reported, Okay, what just happened on Friday, and then listen to this.
A 13-year-old Palestinian boy opened fire in East Jerusalem on Saturday, wounding 2 Israelis, officials said, a day after another attacker killed 7 outside a synagogue in the deadliest attack in the city since 2008.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened his security cabinet late Saturday to discuss the burst of violence, which followed a deadly Israeli military raid in the West Bank, a barrage of rocket fire from the Gaza Strip and a series of Israeli airstrikes in the blockaded territory. He was expected to announce a series of punitive measures against the Palestinians later in the evening. Harry Michaels reporting.
So you can see this continued. You heard the initial report was on Friday. Now we've got another report on Saturday, the very next day. Now, to put that into perspective a little bit, and then I'll let you comment on this. To put that in perspective a little bit, imagine back to 9/11, okay, the terrorist attack on New York City. Now, imagine if there had been a terrorist attack the very next day on New York, again, same city, but another terrorist attack. Imagine that, and remember what we had to go through following the attack on 9/11. And how everything was affected. Stock markets were affected. People's movement was affected. Everybody was terrified that there would be another attack, that type of thing. Go ahead. You can comment on that, and then I'm going to continue this.
Yeah, absolutely. The shock of 9/11, I was there in Corpus Christi watching the reports coming out over the television, and then driving back to Dallas that very day. People were going 80 miles an hour. Police were passing without even looking at anyone. I mean, it was chaos all the way back to Dallas.
Right.
That's the kind of thing. And like you say, we certainly were fearful the next day and the next several days, but nothing else happened, praise the Lord. The fact that it does happen in Jerusalem all the time, and in fact, you've got more to report that we talked about before the show, and I want to leave plenty of time for that. But that's, this thing isn't over yet. So
right, and of course now this is the area of the world that we need to concentrate on, because this is God's holy city. And so these terrorist attacks, these are well thought out, they are well planned, and they are for one reason only, of course, which is to ultimately destroy the Jewish state, which of course God is not going to let happen, but they don't know that. The terrorists don't know that. So we covered Friday, we covered Saturday, kind of put things into perspective from a terrorist point of view, and if you can kill your phone, that'd be great. But here is, this is yet another report. So let's listen to it.
A suicide bomber struck a crowded mosque inside a police compound in Pakistan on Monday, causing the roof to collapse and killing at least 59 people and wounding more than 150 others, officials said.
Most of the casualties were police officers. It was not clear how the bomber was able to slip into the walled compound, which houses the police headquarters in the northwestern city of Peshawar and is itself located in a high-security zone with other government buildings. Sabakaf Momand, a commander for the Pakistani Taliban, claimed responsibility for the attack on Twitter. Harry Michaels reporting.
Now, of course, this is Pakistan. This isn't Israel. But what I wanted to point out on this particular report is the terrorist activity is continuing. And in this particular case, this is Muslim versus Muslim. Okay, this that's all that is. Because if you're having a terrorist attack from someone that supports the Quran and Islam and all that, and you do that in a country that supports Islam and the Quran and all that, then what's the point other than just a pure terrorist attack, trying to get the world to understand that, hey, we've got to bow down to the Islamic terrorists. I mean, that's how I read it. That, again, personal opinion, but I'll let you comment on that. And also, I think it's appropriate now for you to talk a little bit about the Israeli response to that, because under Benjamin Netanyahu, they do not allow a terrorist attack to go unpunished. They will retaliate, and they will retaliate hard. Go ahead, Terry.
The reports are coming in from all directions. First of all, of course, Amir Sephardi reported 2 days ago that hundreds of drones were sent into Iran, and there was damage there of all kinds, and mostly aimed at military installations. There was an underground bomb factory that was obliterated. Anyway, but that's what that was going 2 days ago. Then when I get on with you, I discover pre-show that in fact you're telling me that there actually were more drone attacks yesterday, if I'm remembering what you said correctly. So it's just escalating right before our very eyes.
Right, and the attacks, they're coordinated, they're well planned, they're well thought out. And the one thing that I noticed was normally in the past anyway, I won't say normally, in the past, when Israel has retaliated, they've sent fighter jets over to take care of certain things, or sent missiles or whatever. But now they are beginning to send unmanned drones. So they're basically...
Okay, now can I jump in, because this is very important.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you confirm for me and the audience that it was in fact Israel? And the reason I'm asking that question, let me preface it with this, that 2 days ago when Amir reported his understanding of the drone attacks, he was not comfortable saying or identifying who was actually sending them. He wouldn't say. He said, I'm not saying Israel sent the drones, whatever. Do you have any confirmation one way or the other on that particular point? Do you know for certain, as an example, that Israel, in fact, was involved with the drone attacks a couple days ago and the ones yesterday and so forth? Thank you.
Yes. Well, first of all, you have to remember that Amir he's really, I think he's either still at least in a reserve unit, a member of the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. So he has to be extremely careful in what he says because of the security clearances and different things that he has. And he has information which far exceeds anything that I will ever get, because he has...
Or anyone else.
Yeah, because he has that direct communication with the Israeli Defense Force. So can I say definitively, without any question, without any doubt whatsoever, that Israel initiated these attacks, or the counterattack, I should say? No, I cannot do that. Okay, I can only report what I'm given by other agencies that are telling me that Israel did it. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, I firmly believe that Israel did it, because I do not see another country in the Middle East that would retaliate against the Iranian regime, or against Hezbollah, or Hamas, or any of the. I don't see any of them attacking those folks. However, I do know that Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't play. And when it comes to Israel, he's going to do everything that he possibly can to defend them. So when Israel was attacked, it should come as no surprise to anyone that there was a counterattack. So can I definitively say that Israel made that attack without any doubt whatsoever? No, I don't have the film footage of that. I don't have, and Israel, to my knowledge, at this time anyway, to my knowledge, they have not come out and said, we did this. But I'm saying, my personal opinion is, Israel tore them up right away. They didn't wait. They moved in there and they took care of the situation. And that's really the best that I can tell you on that, Terry.
Well, that's very fair, because the fact is that Amir noted himself, and this is not something that's different. We run into this all the time. But he pointed out that even though the Palestinians and all of those factions were celebrating, handing out candy in the streets over the people being murdered Friday night on the Sabbath, and then the murder that took place Saturday and so forth. They were celebrating candy in the street with the crowds and all of that. No one from those factions would actually admit up to being actually personally involved. Any of them, none of them would say that. They were just celebrating the fact that it happened. But I think that fits in with what you're talking about in terms of Israel and their own playing it close to the vest, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I think I have a report later on. Have to forgive me. I've looked at so many. I can't remember what I loaded and what I didn't load. But it seems as though someone has taken credit for the attack on Israel. And now, don't hold me to that. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure that I've got that particular clip loaded. We'll see as the program continues. But it's unusual for us to talk about Israel in like a second place type reporting. I like to build the show to where you get the main impact later on into the show. So it just tells you that what's going on in the world right now is pretty significant. And we are going to get into that, I promise you, because this deals with Turkey, this deals with NATO, this deals with Greece, with Sweden, with Finland, with Russia. I mean, just about everybody. And the thing is all of this, again, is happening really fast. Exactly the way that the Bible said would happen. All of this stuff is happening very, very quickly. So now, again, later in the show, for those of you that get the entire 1 hour Last Christian Radio show, we're going to get into this very deep. For those of you that only receive what we call the first half of the show, I would ask that you go to www.lastchristian.net. That is the website for the Last Christian Radio show. www.lastchristian.net, and you can always find the second half of the show there. And I think that in this particular instance, I think it's very important that you do. There is a lot going on. It is moving very, very quickly, and I wish I had enough time here in the first half of the show to play you the clip that I really wanted to for the first half, because it gets into Turkey and what we're talking about with Turkey. For those of you that don't get the second half, the best I can tell you, again, go to www.lastchristian.net for the second half. But Turkey is involving itself to a point now where it's having influence over other NATO nations. Now, this is a very important point to make, that NATO is fracturing. And the North American Trade Organization, I think that's what it's called, something like that. Treaty Organization. Treaty. Okay, thank you, Terry. They have been the only thing really standing in the way of Russia for decades. And I'm going back to just after World War II. And they have been very, very staunch in maintaining a relationship with each other. They have promised to back each other up. And now there's infighting. Now there are actually countries within NATO that are threatening other countries within NATO. Now, that is a scary proposition, because what it does is it gives Russia basically a free shot at bringing some of these countries in, and again, building that coalition that we know of from Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39 that will, in fact, attack Israel. So what do you think about all this, Terry?
There's absolutely, militarily speaking, there's absolutely nothing that is as bad as what is called dissension in the ranks.
Right.
When you've got the people that are supposed to be fighting together, fighting each other, that's when someone who is against you is going to step in quickly and take advantage of it.
Right.
So that's where we're at right now.
Well, unfortunately, that's true. And, Israel is finding itself more and more isolated from the world. And again, this is no surprise to anybody that follows the Bible. We know it's coming. And I'm at a loss as to how quickly all of this is happening. I've never seen anything like this in all my years of events around the world just playing out incredibly quickly. Now, for those of you that are not getting the second half of the show, we encourage you to go to www.lastchristian.net. Okay, now we're going to continue our discussion, Terry, because, as I said, Turkey is a major player in all of this. All of a sudden, the Turkish president or leader, whatever the heck he calls himself, is one of, in my opinion, the biggest anti-Semites in the world today. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he's a total Muslim.
Yeah, well, and that's a perfect segue into this. Take a look at this.
Turkey's radical Islamist president, very anti-Israel as well, Recep Erdogan, not only threatens military action against a fellow NATO member nation, Greece, but is blocking the attempts to gain membership by Sweden and Finland. The West is not very happy with Erdogan right now, and he's not been very happy with the West or Israel for some time. Are the two sides on a collision course? And remember, again, Turkey is a NATO member nation. It has been since 1952. If there is a breakup, what does that look like? What are the ramifications for NATO, the Middle East? But Erdogan is essentially his Justice and Development Party, which has ruled over Turkey since 2003, 20 years in office now for Erdogan. It's essentially, again, the Turkish branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he follows the Muslim Brotherhood formula. He is a radical Islamist, no doubt, but he wears a suit and a tie, and he will rub shoulders with Western leaders. That's the Brotherhood's MO, folks, to ingratiate themselves into Western society in order to subvert it and turn it over from within. That's what the Brotherhood seeks to do. Erdogan, again, leads a NATO member nation, and he's been nothing but a headache for NATO since he came into office 20 years ago. Here's the latest in the situation. And remember why Turkey is so crucial. It is a bridge, quite literally, geographically, between Europe and Asia. But here is the latest. You know about Erdogan's attempts to block Sweden and Finland from joining NATO. We have reported that previously on the newscast. Long story short, back in June, Sweden and Finland said, hey, wait a minute, we're not feeling too good about our neighbor Russia invading Ukraine at our doorstep. Finland and Sweden were not NATO members, famously neutral, these two countries. They said, this does not give us a good feeling. Frankly, it's making us quite nervous. Perhaps we should join NATO. So they approached NATO, and NATO was ready to welcome them with open arms. But every NATO member, out of the 30 NATO member nations, every member has to approve membership for a new nation. And Erdogan in Turkey said, not so fast. I don't want Sweden and Finland to join. He accused both nations of harboring anti-Turkey terrorists, Kurdish terrorists, on their soil. And he said, if we're even going to have this discussion, you need to do something about that. So Sweden, Finland, and Turkey have been in talks for the past several months. Now Turkey says those talks are out the window, because last weekend in Stockholm, Sweden, there was a large anti-Turkey rally. A number of Kurdish demonstrators were there. There was anti-Erdogan rhetoric. Apparently someone burnt a Quran at this rally, and Turkey was infuriated by all of that. And Erdogan came out and said, now, no way will I agree to Swedish membership in NATO.
Okay, so now there are 30 NATO members, 30 nations that are in NATO. It takes a vote of 30 to nothing for anyone to be able to join NATO. And what Turkey has done is they've said there's no way that we are going to allow Sweden in. So you would think that the other 29 nations that want Sweden to be a part of NATO and to provide them with some protection, because they are right up against Russia, obviously. I mean, they're bordering. You would think that they would want to get Sweden into NATO. But this just came out today, okay? And you're going to have to pardon me, those of you that are watching this, you're going to have to pardon me because I'm going to look over here at the screen that I have up. This is from the country of Hungary, okay? This is the first time that we have ever mentioned Hungary on the Last Christian Radio Show. But their foreign minister, he made this comment. This is Sweden's government should act differently if it wants to clinch Turkish support for its bid to join NATO. Hungary's foreign minister said Tuesday, adding that a recent Koran burning protest outside the Turkish embassy in Stockholm was unacceptable. Now, I'm going to stop right there for a minute, and we're going to discuss this burning of the Quran. I want you to look at Iran. How many times has the Bible been picked up, burned, destroyed, whatever, and the person that had it killed?
Yeah. And the American flag is burned constantly.
Right.
In Iran and in a lot of other countries. And in fact, I'm ashamed to say, even in America.
Right.
So people need to decide where they're at and what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now, one thing that caught my attention in this report, and this is crazy, really, is this same guy that we were talking about. He made this statement. He said, as a Christian and as a Catholic, I must say that burning of a holy book of another religion is an unacceptable act. And he criticized the statement by Sweden's prime minister that while burning the Quran was inappropriate and deeply disrespectful, it fell under Jewish freedom of speech protections. In other words, you have no right to speak anything that is not politically correct. You must abide by the world. Now, that to me is satanic. That is what the Antichrist is all about. You either agree with me and do what I say, or you die. And it seems like that the world is setting itself up for exactly that right now. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, what's so hilarious about all of this is the Antichrist is eventually going to outlaw all religious books, right. All religions, all gods, because he's going to become and call himself God. This is the prophecy that will be fulfilled halfway through the tribulation. So it's hilarious that right now he's stirring people up to fight, oh, I'm for this religion or that religion, or I think all religions are good. You know, this is all garbage, you know,
Absolutely.
and people are accepting it just so that they don't have their little parties and their individual lives interrupted. You know, it's ridiculous.
Right. Well, now, Turkey responded to that statement. Okay. Sure. And they said that Turkey shares Hungary's wish for NATO enlargement, but that it was now impossible for us to confirm Sweden's ascension into the alliance. He called the Koran burning protests a provocation which will take us nowhere. It can only lead to chaos. What do they think they're in now? Luxury?
Yeah, it's absurd. You know, they can burn Bibles, they can burn flags, American flags. You know what? They don't burn an insignificant flag. You know, they go to the top, right. And so it's ridiculous. It's absurd. And people need to look at the realities of what is taking place.
Yeah. Well, Hungary's government was expected to vote on accepting Sweden and Finland into NATO by the end of last year. But the issue now on the Hungarian parliament's agenda during the first session of the year this February is to keep them out. So, again, this is a fracturing of NATO. And what that does, of course, is it pushes Turkey further and further away from other NATO countries. And, of course, they are acting, in my opinion, as a spy within NATO to provide Russia with a lot of information that they would not otherwise have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Turkey needs to be challenged as to where their marbles are, because are they going to defend Russia? Is that what they're doing? And I hate to get into that squabble, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of NATO. You know, NATO is no longer an organization if they're going to allow Turkey to call the shots, especially when Turkey is bosom pals with Russia.
Yeah.
Well, it's a contradiction in terms here.
Yeah, I just want to put the map up here for just a second, and you can see how Turkey is so close with Syria, Iraq, Iran. You see Greece over there to the left, and the reason I'm showing this, number one, is to show how easy it is for Turkey to be able to align itself with that Gog-Magog coalition that will be begun by Russia. But also, I want you to see that their border also touches Greece, and there's a reason. There is a reason that Greece is coming up here, and we're going to get into that right now. So take a look at this report, again from Eric Stackelbeck of the Watchman newscast.
This has gone largely unreported in the mainstream media here in the West. Surprise, surprise. And NATO has not had much to say about it, sadly. But Erdogan has been openly threatening military action against Greece. That's right, a neighboring nation to Turkey and a fellow NATO member. Folks, two NATO members have never gone to war against each other for obvious reasons. It's a united alliance, a united front, or at least it is supposed to be. But Erdogan, over the past few weeks, number one, has threatened missile strikes against Athens. Number two, warned last weekend that if Greece, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but if Greece gets out of line in these continued disputes that Greece and Turkey are having, with Turkey violating Greek airspace, also wanting to take possession of islands in the Aegean Sea, Greek islands. Then there's the Cyprus issue, an island obviously split between Greek and Turkish control. Then there are territorial issues in the Mediterranean. Turkey and Greece at loggerheads right now, long story short. But Erdogan said in this speech last weekend, basically, Greece, if you get out of line, beware, quote, and I'm quoting him directly, the crazy Turks, his words, not mine, the crazy Turks will come for you. He's also warned about taking action against Greece suddenly in the night, in his words. This is all coming from a NATO member nation against another NATO member nation, and I have yet to hear any kind of condemnation from NATO leadership of Turkey. Recently, he's conducted kind of a charm offensive with Israel because Turkey's economy right now, folks, is in a very bad way. Inflation is through the roof, and Erdogan has an election coming in May 2023.
Okay, so now, before I played that, we had already discussed that there were two NATO countries that were involved in all this stuff. And that's, of course, Hungary and Turkey. But now we have a third one, and that's Greece. And on top of that, we have NATO member Turkey threatening NATO member Greece. Now, Russia's got to be looking at that and saying, oh, wow, this is awesome. This is a great opportunity for us to possibly even get a second spy inside our network. And, of course, it leads up to, again, the Ezekiel 38 prophecy of the Gog and Magog war. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I was thinking all of that as you were talking. You can see the pieces coming together. And there was a time when you might have kind of hesitated and said, well, let's wait and see. And, it's tumbling all together. And like you say, it's the speed with which everything is happening that takes one's breath. This is, there are few people that could argue with your scenario, and only the speed with which it could take place.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, this is something that I think is lost on the younger generation, is how things used to work and the speed of different things. You can go all the way back to before World War II, and there were negotiations between the United States and Japan for months and months. And the Japanese actually, they had a breakdown of time, basically. I mean, I don't think they intentionally delivered an attack on Pearl Harbor, thinking, we're going to do this before we declare war. I think that their timing was off. They had, again, I'm just trying to put this in perspective for a younger generation that doesn't understand how things used to work as compared to how they are now. But they had sent a delegation to the White House with instructions to tell the president that they were going to declare war, basically, that they were going to attack. But that diplomatic envoy did not make it in time, and the attack took place before they arrived, or before they were able to issue that statement to then President Roosevelt. So again, this happened over months and months and months. All of this is happening within weeks, days, and sometimes hours. So there is a huge difference between how things used to be and how things are now. Okay. I've got one more clip I want to play. And again, all about Turkey. And we'll talk about it once we listen to this one.
Say Erdogan were to lose this election, do you think he'd accept it quietly? And would he even let it get to that point where he's declared the loser? To me, this does not seem like an individual who would go quietly into the night and just accept a loss and accept those results. He has spent 20 years remaking and reshaping Turkey in his radical Islamist image, and he's not going to go quietly. I truly believe that. Okay, if the alliance is frayed, why not just boot Turkey? Or will Turkey leave? NATO does not have any formal mechanism to expel or suspend a member. Essentially, folks, this is pretty much unprecedented. Now, the other 29 NATO members could get together and try to decide on something, I'm sure, but they're staring at an unprecedented and very unsavory situation for them. The other option is, okay, we're all supposed to assist each other militarily. And remember, there are NATO bases in Turkey, crucial NATO bases there. We are all supposed to, all the member nations, assist each other militarily. Perhaps we will just stop all assistance to Turkey. That's another option. But folks, the fact that we're even having this conversation tells you something about how much the ties have frayed. The other option here, does Turkey leave the alliance voluntarily? I find it unlikely that that would happen. Turkey gets a lot more out of this alliance than NATO does, I believe. Even though Turkey has the second largest army in NATO behind the United States, which is also a major factor, and they've been involved in Kosovo, Afghanistan, different NATO operations. But folks, the tide is turning, and it's very clear that Turkey is moving east. Turkey sees more kindred spirits, I guess you would say, in the likes of Russia, China, the Iranian regime, and others, and again is a staunch supporter of Hamas and has been a notorious opponent of Israel under Erdogan. I truly feel for the Turkish people, what they're suffering under this regime.
Okay, he asked the question: Would Turkey leave NATO voluntarily? I think I can answer that with a strong no. And I believe, again, personal opinion, that Russia would step in. If Turkey is obviously in communication with Russia, there's no secret that their relationship has gotten better and better. And I would think that if Turkey told Russia, hey, we're going to leave NATO and we're going to, we'll align ourselves closer with you, I think Russia would say, no, don't do that. Don't do that publicly. We appreciate the fact that you're going to align with us. We welcome you with open arms, but we want you to remain a NATO member because you're giving us all kinds of great information that you would no longer be able to provide to us should you leave NATO. So what is your impression of that one, Terry?
Yeah, that's actually, I think, exactly what's going to take place because, like you say, Turkey can do a great deal more for Russia inside of NATO than outside. And so that's where it was at. And this goes back, I'm sorry, I have to throw in Ezekiel 38.
No,
but
go ahead.
This goes back to the hook in the jaws. What's going to happen is it's not going to be some diplomatic this is going to be some major thing that happens, and it's going to be like an explosion, and Russia's going to be moving. Right. And it's going to happen. This isn't because things are moving so fast. It's like a car on a racetrack, and it's going to hit a curve, and it's not going to be able to hold it, and it's going off the rails. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. And it's going to be so fast. The only thing faster is going to be the rapture.
Right. Well, you said that some major thing's going to happen. Well, it could be as simple as somebody else burns a Quran. I mean, I'm just it could really be that silly. And, I mean, if that one Quran was the only one they have, maybe I could see there some kind of religious objection to it some kind of way. But, Qurans wear out, Bibles wear out, You think of World War I and Archduke Ferdinand being assassinated, and it was over a religious dispute, and that started World War I. Yeah. And no one was seeing, they didn't see it. Everybody was being polite and pinkies up when they had their tea and all that. Right. And boy, that assassination just turned the world upside down. Yeah. Well, there was one in Vietnam too, if you remember. I think people even blamed the United States on that one. But, these are very insignificant incidents that different countries are blowing up to huge, in huge proportion. And, it doesn't make sense at all that one person's action, and by the way, one person who wasn't even a member of government, that person's action could prevent a organization the size of NATO from accepting another country, but it's a blinding effect, is what it is, and God is in this. I mean, you can see God's fingerprints all over this one because as we move closer to that fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 and 39, certain things have to happen. Now, I wanted to go back for a second and revisit Hungary because, like I said, this is the first time that we have ever discussed Hungary, and I didn't talk to you about this in pre-show, so this is a complete shock question to you, okay? And you may or may not have an answer. I don't because I didn't have time to research this to get the answer. But is Hungary one of the countries that is aligned with the Ezekiel 38 prophecy? Are they included in that in any way? Are they on the other side of it, or do you not know either? I cannot give you a good answer on that. I would say if I was on a test in school, I'd say no. Okay. That's what I would say. And me too.
that doesn't mean I'm right. So.
Me too. And what I'm thinking of there is geographic location. And I don't think that they fall within the Ezekiel 38 prophecy location-wise. Now, I also feel like that, they are kind of like teetering on the edge. I think they're one of those. I think they're one of those countries that'll probably just either not say anything when the attack takes place, or maybe they'll join the few nations that actually protest the action, but don't do anything to stop it. I mean, that's just, again, that is my personal perspective on that.
Yeah, and there's going to be a bunch, including the United States, that are going to be in that camp.
Yeah,
so.
And that's if the United States is still around. And I am not,
Well, amen, amen.
I'm not saying that it won't be. I'm just saying that I know that, if, for instance, there was a EMP attack, electronic magnetic pulse, we've talked about it before. Or,
I don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, me either. Me either. I like heat and lights. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I don't know exactly how it's all going to unfold as far as the United States is concerned, but I do know that, just like you said, the United States is not going to be in it, except if we're still a country, we're going to protest it. We're going to protest it. We'll probably yell for more sanctions. How well have those worked anywhere in the world? I mean, I can't think of a time where sanctions actually worked the way that they were supposed to work. There are countries that are still buying from Russia as far as oil, gas, coal.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, just today, and I didn't have time to load it for the show, but just today, Germany announced a new pipeline, or that they're going to be receiving oil from Russia by another pipeline, not one of the two that got blown up, but another one. And I think it was I don't even want to take a guess at what the volume was. I don't want to say that, but a significant amount of oil transported into Germany, and that, I thought, was one of those sanctions where we weren't supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's but see, in the world we live in today, there just are very few news surprises.
Absolutely.
When you see people switching back and forth, and countries switching back and forth, it's no longer, well, that's like Hungary coming out in support of Turkey. You're like, wait a minute, what'd you say?
Yeah. Well, I've never seen NATO this fractured. And this is why, again, this is a breaking news segment, even though, again, I had to go back all the way to last Friday, but it's the same thing. This is just a continuation. This is a build-up. Now, usually when you have a build-up, there is finally something that happens that, culminates from that build-up. So we've got terrorist attacks in Jerusalem beginning on Friday, carrying into Saturday. As you said, there were people that were celebrating there on the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian-held territories. They were celebrating
the West Bank.
They were celebrating. They were handing out candy because they had carried out an attack. Now, I want you to also think about this for anybody that says, oh, well, Israel does this and Israel does that. Okay, well, tell me the last time that Israel targeted civilians. I mean, purposely went after civilians.
At a mosque.
Yeah.
At a mosque.
Yeah. I mean, what Israel does, when they respond, they try to hit the military target. They're not, unfortunately, there are going to be civilians killed. Okay, that's war. I hate to say it, but that's war. And you also have to say, well, if you're all that worked up about it, then you really must be worked up about the fact that we carpet bombed Germany. and we carpet bombed Vietnam and countless others. And I'm not speaking of only the United States of America. There were a lot of countries that did that, okay? And so it is just, this is crazy to me. This is all happening so very quickly. I don't know what is the first terrorist attack you remember? The first terrorist attack that I remember was I believe it was in Germany during the Olympics.
I would go back before that to the Garden of Eden.
Well, that's a long way away. Yeah, that's a long way back. I was thinking about
first. You said the first.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
No, that you remember. If you remember what happened in the Garden of Eden, Terry, then you are the longest living human being on the face of this earth. I'm talking about in your lifetime. What can you remember as a first terrorist attack that you can personally recall?
Well, because I was closely associated geographically, I'm going to think of Munich.
Yeah,
that's it. The killing of the Jewish.
Yeah, that's it.
1972.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was thinking. Well, we've covered it, people, and so I hope you get a better understanding. Things are happening quickly. They're happening very quickly. So unless the rapture occurs, we will be back here on Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. If for you that are carrying it live, for everybody else, we will see you this Thursday evening. And until then, good night and God bless you.